Can empathy save healthcare? A conversation with Geoffrey Roche. What does the future of healthcare hold, and why is empathy an essential piece? Join us for a forward thinking conversation with Geoffrey Roche, a leading voice in healthcare innovation and workforce development. Jeffrey shares his insights on the industry's challenges and opportunities and how we can build a more resilient and equitable healthcare system for tomorrow. Welcome to the Wellness Driven Life Show, where you're about to go on a wellness driven ride. Let me share with you a little bit about the guests that we have here today. Geoffrey Roche is a healthcare and educational leader focused on workforce development, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He is a senior executive at Core Education, PBC, and an experienced hospital administrator and higher education leader. Roche is a frequent speaker at national healthcare events and a Forbes Business Council nominee. I am so pleased to help welcome to our stage today, Mr. Geoffrey Roche. Welcome.
Thank you, April, for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. This is a hot topic, as always, isn't it? The healthcare system. So, this is exciting to have you on the show to explain a little bit about the inner workings of it and what is happening at the forefront. But let's get started and share with the audience a little bit more about you so we can get to know you more.
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously, as you and I were talking about, you're the daughter of a nurse, I'm the son of a nurse. And, I always say, always been so proud of my mother and all that she's done as a nurse within our healthcare system. But without question, her influence and impact is also what brought me into healthcare. I never would have thought that I would have served and continue to serve in healthcare. And, honestly, it was really, as a young child, actually at age 5 is when my mother earned her degree. I remember that moment vividly. I remember her actually, having her pinning ceremony and receiving her diploma. I was there with my Oma, my brother, at the time. And, it was actually also at the time when my parents were divorcing. And so I just remember that experience. She achieved that and continued to, work, all the different shifts. But she's still very active mom and very engaged. And, also was somebody who would tell us and share stories about her time as a nurse regularly. And then, fast forward, all those years, my mother was a labor and delivery nurse. And so oftentimes when I was in school, I'd be hearing all about my friends, classmates whose moms and parents were having my mom as their nurse, as they were having other siblings that were born and such. And so it was just an incredible experience. And then to be honest with you, when I was in college, I never, again, thought I would have worked in healthcare, never thought about it. My academic advisor said, "Hey, why don't you do an internship in healthcare? You never know. There's great administrative opportunities, lots of great ways to leverage your passion." I took him up on that offer, had an internship for a semester. And then, about a month after that internship landed my first job at my healthcare system where I was for just under a decade. And, my first CEO was a nurse. And so I was like, this is beautiful, nurse and nurses everywhere. An incredible leader. Also who had phenomenal impact on me, and so just a beautiful experience all around.
There's nothing like having people like that in our lives that influence us or really shape our lives in some sort of capacity, literally,
Yeah,
because they are so warm, so caring, so intimate with us during moments in our life that are vital. And so, yes, we do share that our mothers are nurses, and our stories are so well aligned because I too was very young, probably around age 5 when mom got that degree, and moving forward, growing up kind of in a nursing home, so to speak. Times were different then, and that was sort of how we had childcare, so to speak. And we went to work with mom. And so we grew up in that aspect of being able to be with other people, see her do her job, care for others. And it's a beautiful experience because it helps us show up differently in the world and make an impact like they too did. And your story shares so much about that, where you felt in alignment with all of those things. So share a little bit more about how you were able to serve and how you show up because of those experiences and people.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? I mean, certainly in the healthcare system I served in, my mother had served there. So she was not serving when I started, but she had served there for about 13, 14 years and had moved on, a couple years prior to me starting there. And so many of my colleagues knew my mom. And, as I grew further in my career, particularly when I was promoted to be a director, so many, my peer directors knew my mom. In fact, our director of quality was my mother's preceptor. And, at one point in time, I sat right next to the director of quality office wise, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're so much like your mom." And, obviously I wasn't clinical, but just in my qualities and such, my mother always had a huge influence. I think, though, to your question, there's a lot that I often reflect on from the vantage point of, I think because of my mom and the upbringing, when I came into healthcare leadership and just the way that I do lead and the way that I collaborate, I particularly learned it through that lens that so often in healthcare, the biggest workforce of a healthcare system are our nurses. And they're often also, the source of our workforce that are working the longest, the hardest, and at times with little support. And so, I think without question, that influence made me the type of person to kind of ask questions and sort of respectfully push the envelope to say, hey, is this the right thing for us to do? Should we be doing this versus this and those types of things? And so
Yeah.
I was reflecting earlier actually that, when I was young, my mom was in a union as part of her nursing career, and she brought us on the picket lines, and we were walking and striking
Wow.
with her. And I'm always thankful for that because it also taught me the power of advocacy, and certainly
Mm.
the reason why we should care about culture, we should care about wages, and why we should care about the overall package, that a nurse needs when they work.
Oh, that is really cool. It's like my mom taking me to work too, really seeing everything as it is, and the realities behind the scenes that most people don't get to experience. I had that aspect when the thought of death, life and death, right? Let's take that for an example. When you are in the healthcare field or the first responding field, which is what I chose to go into, I didn't want to care for people. I wanted to save people, right? So it was a little bit different. And but you understand that death is inevitable. And when you have the opportunity to be able to see that, it makes it easier to be able to respond the way that you need to respond during those circumstances, or be able to care for other people around you that may not have the tools and resources and the knowledge, know-how of how to respond themselves. And so when we come into the topic of empathy, when empathy comes into the play of how we deal in the healthcare community and empathy, it is a pivotal aspect of being able to show up that way and show others, because otherwise, because they don't know how to respond a certain way, we have to teach them, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, and let me just say, kind of similar to you, right? I in my healthcare administration tenure, one of the projects I got to work on was building out and developing our EMS service line, which was an amazing experience. And I got to work with somebody who's my very best friend today, who is an EMT. She was clinically responsible for it, but the experience of working with EMS was just an unbelievable one. And to your point, the purpose and passion that EMS professionals bring into saving lives is really second to none. I mean, I have spent a lot of time with EMS during that time where I led the service line. And, I can remember actually when I first met some of them, they said, drop the suit, please. This isn't a suit quality. Like, you got to get comfortable. You see us in here, like, if we don't have our uniforms on, we're relaxing, comfortable, like, do that. And I spent a lot of time on rigs learning and being a voice for them. But to your point, empathy, whether it's leadership or just in our work, particularly in healthcare, is something not only that we have to teach, but it's something we have to train for and continue to train. And one of the things that we're seeing today more prevalent than even before, because we're focusing so much on training, clinically or training more for the role, is while that's important, we also have to focus on training and simulating and giving different experiences around empathy. Because ultimately, how we treat one another as colleagues, how we treat our patients, when we do it in an empathetic manner, it's going to be so much more impactful. It's going to be so much more connection focused, connection oriented. And it's also, as humans, what we want. We want to be appreciated, valued, respected. And so it's such a powerful point. And I do believe that on the academic side, where we're obviously educating and training our professionals, we've got to really make sure we're emphasizing the importance of empathy.
Now, Geoffrey, you mentioned something that it's a continuous thing where we always have to learn how to be empathetic. And you also mentioned not just with the person, like the client or the patient that's right in front of you, but also with your colleagues and head of staff or what have you. It's so many different aspects of being able to understand how to respond in different circumstances with different people.
Yeah.
So could you give us a few scenarios of what that might be like as an educator and doing it yourself?
Yeah. I think to your point, and the reason I suggested it has to be continuous, is in healthcare, we often talk about like the power of debriefing. And, particularly for a clinical team or even, for EMS professionals, when you have a tough case or a tough experience, debriefing is super, super important. Taking that time to, take the team off of the assignment and talk through what what that most recent experience was like is really, really vital. It's also a time where you can, look back and identify ways that things could have been done differently, learn from it, do it in a way that has no threat or risk associated with anybody there, because it's a continuous learning improvement type of exercise. But I think particularly when it comes to empathy is the type of space that we have to have it done in a way that we're, acting it out. We're doing it continually. And we're doing it in a way that people can see it regularly. The consistency factor is really, really important. The other piece of it to why I brought up, the importance of connecting it with how we treat one another as colleagues and then also our patients is if we embed and actually do empathetic behaviors as colleagues, the benefit will be to our patients and vice versa. And so, when we think about our workplaces, creating that sense of belonging, that sense of community, when you're empathetic, you just know you're going to feel that sense of community with a colleague. You're going to feel that sense that they respect you, they value you, they hear you, they're listening to you. And so that impact is just very, very profound, which is super, super important.
I think that when we are able to show that with everything and everyone around us, it just heightens those skills continuously. And it made me think about how we move about our personal life and our professional life. I think that these skills are met in all of those areas. When we think about personal improvement, development, or what have you, that's just like thinking about how we've responded throughout our days and thinking about things, how we could have done things differently, how we could have said things differently. It all comes into the same thing of being a better human being every single day, doesn't it?
I love that. Yeah. To your point, we need so much more of that in our society too. When you meet someone, even if you're just getting a cup of coffee, or you're going into a store, when you see empathy in action, when you see somebody, I can remember back in my days of working in a grocery store, the amount of people that I would help because we put things so high up in the aisles that not everyone can reach it. And someone would say to me, they can figure it out. And I would say, no, no, no. Like, I'm tall. That's a benefit. I can help other people. Those types of actions make such a difference.
They do. They do. Giving to other people, that power of reciprocity. Geoffrey, this is a great conversation. We're going to move into our commercial briefly. And then when we get back, let's talk about how that has an impact on the future of healthcare. Stay tuned. Are you ready to take control of your ride to wellness? Rev up with Driven Living. Visit www.drivenliving.com and buckle up for a journey. Get exclusive access to our Wellness Driven Life Show guest portal, where you can dive deep into the minds of our esteemed guests. Sign up for our newsletter and get insider scoops on these distinguished personalities. It's like having a backstage pass to their life-changing wisdom. But that's not all. You'll also receive a free hug. You heard me right, a free hug. An enlightening ebook from the Driven Living team. Discover the science-backed benefits of hugging yourself. It's a fill-up for your wellness tank. Because at Driven Living, we believe in fueling your journey to wellness, both physically and psychologically. So what are you waiting for? Visit www.drivenliving.com today. Welcome back, everyone. We're here with Geoffrey Roche having a great conversation about healthcare and empathy and what the future of that is. Why is empathy so important in the healthcare arena? So let's just give a great example of what that means. Let's take an average person moving through the traditional healthcare system we have here in America and what that looks like and what kind of things that they run into without empathy, and why empathy is important moving forward.
Yeah. So first of all, let me just say there's a phenomenal video for anyone that wants to watch it that Stanford Medicine put out called I Am Human. And one of the things that when you watch this video that you'll see is it's literally pushing this agenda of why empathy is so important, not just for our patients, but also for all those that we work alongside in healthcare. And the reason that's important is we know healthcare, especially you and I as children of nurses, is a tough space. It's tough work. It's hard work. It's long work. And oftentimes healthcare professionals don't fill their own cup. They focus on serving and supporting others all the time. And so why empathy is so important there is that when we think about helping others, when we think about serving others, when we treat one another with mutual respect and kindness, it's such a profound impact, particularly when we think about how hard the work of a healthcare professional truly is. And so, examples that come to mind is, when you're walking in a hospital or a medical office building and you see somebody struggling to find where they need to go, stop and talk to them. Ask them if you could be of help to them. Healthcare is complex, and oftentimes when people are coming in to find their next appointment, if it's their first experience there, you don't know what's on their mind. Their husband or their wife could be just have been diagnosed with cancer. Their child could have some medical issue or have a broken bone. You have no idea. But what you do know is that if you ask them if they need help and they come forward and you are able to offer it, that impact that you're going to have on them is going to be life-changing. A little impact like that is a great example of, frankly, empathy in action.
You bring up such a great point to walk in somebody else's shoes, right? And it can be difficult to put ourselves in that scenario when things are hectic around us, And there's a lot going on. As we know, especially thinking of, the COVID time period, everything was extraordinarily hectic and there was a lot of fear arise. And so because there's so much chaos moving around you at such a fast paced moment, as either a healthcare professional or a citizen that is there on the sidelines trying to help out, it is so important to be able to think of others when they're in this frantic state, when they're being an ass, let's say, too, because you don't know what's happening in their world.
Yep.
And so when we have that compassionate piece and we put more of an open-hearted aspect to those situations, it changes the entire scenario, right? And everything changes. It's kind of like the internal dialogue is what creates the external circumstances, and that's the truth for any situation that we're in. And you brought in that many people in the healthcare field don't understand that self-care piece for themselves because they're consistently serving others, and that's just what they know. That's the routine. And my mom was the exact same way. So empathy moving through the healthcare system, I know there's so many books that's really, really cool about this particular topic and bringing love back into this, and so people don't feel like a number
Yeah.
or just another person being pushed through something, or herds of cattle, is a really awful way to express that. But, we don't want people to feel that way as they're, trying to receive care, and could be life threatening situations or loved ones that have life threatening situations going on.
Yeah, or to your point, right? Like when you go to the doctor's office and, because they're so focused on the electronic medical record, or something else, they're not even looking at you and, connecting with you. How many times do we have that experience, right? That's a great example where, again, the healthcare system has to figure out how to make that piece get done, but not at the cost of the connection with the patient. Because ultimately, how can you listen, or how can you relate to what that patient may be experiencing or feeling if you're not actually looking at them, if you're not connecting with them? And so, those pieces are super, super critical. I fear that at times in healthcare, because of just the fact of how education works, we're focusing almost like too much on, the too much on the clinical, almost like, we're not here to create robotic care. We're here to create human centered care. And so
Mm.
all the things that are important, from quality to licensure, everything we do from a standard best practice, very, very important, evidence based, 100%. But the most important thing in healthcare is that key word of starting with an H, which is humanity. We're there to serve one another. And so it's so important that at the every level of training and education, we're always coming back to human centered care, human centered practice, because ultimately that's what's best for our patients.
Jeffrey, I love that you bring up that robotic aspect, right? Because technology is on the rise. It's coming so quickly, and it's beneficial for us to be able to utilize that as a tool and a resource to make everything better. And not only that, while everything's and the information is coming to us quicker, it frees up that time for us to be able to be that heart-centered human being face to face and be able to really truly have that presence with one another. And so to me, I feel that we are going in a bigger, better, brighter future with this because of that, where we can really hone in on all of those tools and resources and technology to be able to do that. What is your take on that? Because you have a lot of different resources and education in that aspect.
Yeah. You know, I'm definitely encouraged that when we leverage technology, and particularly AI, machine learning, in the right way, it will help us have better diagnoses, better precision medicine, without question, because it can aid the human with, aspects that may not be as easy to see as a human, but because of the technology, it can identify and hopefully work to improve that care or that quality. The key, though, that we have to remember is that when the technology is going to be used in a way to enhance care or enhance quality, make sure that whatever it is also being done in a way that doesn't cause more work for our care team. And why I bring that up is that we've had this with our electronic medical records and other solutions in the healthcare technology space where we think it's going to have a positive impact, but ultimately, when push comes to shove, it's actually caused more stress, more burnout for our doctors and our nurses and other care team members. So the obvious solution there is whatever technology we're thinking about bringing into healthcare, let's engage the care team that's actually going to use it. Let's get their input before we bring it in, because they will be the ones to be able to tell us whether it's a good solution or not. And if it is a good solution, let's make sure it doesn't affect them, because ultimately it's not an empathetic solution then. The second point I would just make is it's incredibly important that we also be able to talk to our patients about it so that they understand. Far too often we'll roll out new technologies or we'll roll out new solutions in the digital space, but patients may not all patients are comfortable with those things. And so we have to be able to kind of level set and help them understand in a way that they will understand, because some people don't have that, technology is very sophisticated. We've got to be able to relate to each and one another in a way that we understand it.
So we're not quite there yet. And there's a lot of room for improvement. It's almost as if we're in the pilot stages of this new advancement as we move and combine and merge technology within all of the systems. And I know that companies across the world are experiencing that. It's not just in the healthcare, it's in everything, law enforcement, it's in corporate arena, it's literally with everything, technology, transportation, we could go on and on. It's in every aspect of where we are really trying to integrate it to make things more useful and better. But you're correct, you have to look at it at all aspects of not only the user and the company abroad, but also the people who are there, the clients or the patients or what have you. Geoffrey, it's been amazing having you on the show. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
No, I mean, I would just, obviously share that, if you are, somebody in the healthcare space, thank you for all that you do. Certainly, we can never express enough appreciation to you and for you and the work that you do. And same thing on the education space of this too, right? We never can thank all of you enough for the critical work and contributions that you make each and every day. And obviously, in this space, let's just always remember the power of connection and the importance of connecting as humans. And healthcare is a space that really we need to always remember that regularly.
I think that you bring up so many good points, especially as, even if the particular place that you are going to doesn't have everything aligned and together, it is our responsibility solely to be able to step up and be that compassionate, empathetic human being towards others.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt that we each have a responsible role in life, no matter what circumstance is happening around you. Geoffrey, I want to make sure that everyone knows where to find you and also what kind of resources do you offer. So we've had one of your websites displayed on here, and for those of you watching and for those of you listening in, SiemensHealthAndEars.com. It is also in the description below. And so please check it out and see the resources that you have at hand. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, happy to obviously connect with anyone, and certainly happy to connect on LinkedIn too. And I love having these conversations. So thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Wellness Driven Life Show and having this great conversation. And thank you so much for our audience, because without you, the show wouldn't be possible. So thank you so much. Goodbye for now, and we will see you all next time.